In this video, we're going to look at common SEO mistakes to avoid in 2021. Hi everyone, my name's Itamar Blauer. If you're new to the channel, make sure to click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bells to never miss out on future SEO videos. SEO has evolved so much over the past several years, and it's important to identify some common mistakes that people still make, which ends up hurting their organic visibility. Before we get started, leave a comment down below with what do you think the most common SEO mistake actually is. I'll be curious to see your thoughts in the comments. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first common SEO mistake that people make is they focus too much on rankings but not enough about traffic. And the reason this is important is because you can rank number one for loads of keywords, but are these keywords actually generating traffic to your website? So one thing I would always say is when you're checking your rankings, have a look at the search volume associated with it, but also take a look to see your traffic data. So look through Google Search Console, look at your Google Analytics, and identify where you're actually generating the most traffic to your website. And I honestly think that in some cases, rankings are just vanity metrics, because if you rank number one for a keyword that only generates you several clicks a month, then is that really good? So the focus should really be on the traffic that you're generating from your rankings as opposed to just focusing on ranking alone. Common SEO mistake number two is not internally linking enough on your website. And this is often coupled with another thing, which is where people focus too much on building backlinks, but they don't really focus on their own internal linking structure. And the reason why this is important is that when you have a good internal linking structure, you're essentially making it easier for search engines to access your website, to be able to know where to go so that the crawlers can identify relevant pages and all that kind of stuff. And it's also helpful for indexing, and at the time of making this video, you can't submit your website to be indexed manually through Google Search Console, which makes it even more important that you internally link your pages or add them to the sitemap or whatever to actually get them indexed by search engines. Common SEO mistake number three is when you change the URL slug as opposed to changing the page titles. So let's say you've got a guide and you wanted to update it from 2019 to 2020, for instance. Then what some people do is they will actually change the slug and they will have the year there. So they will have, for example, if it's a blog post on SEO trends, for instance, and you've got the slug as SEO trends 2019, people sometimes will update that URL to be SEO trends 2020. But the problem with that is if you haven't redirected the old URL to the new URL, you're potentially missing out on so much SEO value because users won't be able to find it. And if you've built any links to it before or have got internal links, you need to get them updated as well. So what I would say to avoid this mistake is just have the URLs the same and change the page titles if you can. So if you had the URL slug as SEO trends, then you could have the page title including the year, because you can update that and it won't affect the page itself. Common SEO mistake number four is not focusing on the user intent. And what I mean by this is that sometimes people will create content and target certain keywords, but they won't actually know, or they will misinterpret what that user is trying to achieve when they look for that particular query. So the best way to deal with this is to actually search for the query yourself and see what comes up on Google, because that will be a perfect indicator in terms of what Google thinks that the user intent is. And more often than not, that is the case. So definitely check that first and then get a better idea in terms of how you should create your content to match that intent. Common SEO mistake number five is inconsistent link building. And what I mean by inconsistent link building is sometimes when you've got a fresh piece of content out and you say, okay, I want to build loads of links to this webpage. And so you do so, say you built maybe 20 links over the course of 3 months. But then after those 3 months, if you're not building any backlinks to that page, then it seems very inconsistent, and it may be a signal to Google to say, well, people aren't linking to this content anymore. Maybe it's irrelevant now, maybe it's outdated. All of these sorts of things can happen. So the best way to solve this is to have a sustainable, consistent way of building links to your pages. And finally, common SEO mistake number six is not checking the SERP manually. And what I mean by this is, whenever you're trying to rank for a keyword, a lot of people might just simply go on certain SEO tools and have that give them all of the data that they need. but they actually forget to manually type in the keywords that they're targeting on the SERPs to see what comes up. And the reason this is important is because the tools can only give you so much data. It's really important for you to manually check with your own eyes to see how the SERP is laid out, take a look at who's ranking number 1, number 2, number 3, see what they're doing, and utilize the formula that they've used in order to build up your content to match it and even do better than they are. So I hope you enjoyed this video of common SEO mistakes to avoid in 2021. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like rating below. That would really help me out. I've been Itamar Blauer. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hey, you've reached the end of this video, but don't worry, there's plenty more great content that you can watch right now. All you have to do is click one of the 2 video links on the left side of the screen. And also, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to never miss out on future uploads.